I thank the gentleman. I don't have much in terms of a closing that hasn't already been discussed, except to say a few things. The first being thank you. I appreciate each of the witnesses' leadership in their particular sub-areas of what I think is a very important, obviously, subject matter, but also an important profession. One that it would seem to me is executed more out of love than for any kind of monetary gain. And if I had more time, Ms. Constantinaco, in my questioning, I would have asked you about, if you found an employee shortage, really or not, or if, regardless of the pay amount that you were, or any of you were paying your employees, whether that's really why they came to work or not. And I would have also asked, how many are you losing, not just to other companies in the industry or other industries, but if you're losing any to staying at home and collecting an unemployment check instead. That goes on for 2 years now in this country. Yes, and for the record, I'm hearing some nods, seeing some nods. There's some interesting comments that have been made here today about how people are struggling, over 6 years now. And there's other ways, rather than more government dependence, to get this economy going again. And I think as Americans, we ought to go back and explore some of those. That's a different hearing, perhaps, but you all touched on it in a way. For the record, I want to make sure I understood Ms. Jarman's testimony correctly. You haven't necessarily found fraud in these programs, but you haven't been looking for it either. You do a documentary review, if I understand it correctly, to look for, based on paper reviews, whether or not an improper payment's been made. That's a different kind of audit, correct?
Right.
I see the witness nodding her head yes. So I want to make sure that's clear. And I also appreciate what hope will be, Dr. Golden, and for the other witnesses and others that are watching this hearing now, about what the solutions can be that don't necessarily involve throwing new money at a problem, but what we can do to make sure the money that we have allocated gets to the people that really need it, again, so they don't have to be dependent on this kind of program or any other one, really. I mean, that should be our goal, so that people, creating an environment where people can build the best lives for themselves and their families. I mean, that should be it, quite simply. And as I look at the witnesses here today, I see that in your eyes and in the words you uttered, that's the goal as well, and that's very much appreciated. With regard to the solutions, and since this has been done to me in the past by, as I chaired this subcommittee, by other ranking members, not necessarily this one, but have stood in, they've asked questions as part of their closing. So just very briefly, I want to say, out of fairness, is there anything that you two, Ms. Coos, Ms. Constantinaco, want to add in terms of the solutions discussions that we started and what we can do to make these, aside from what's been said, without throwing more money at the problem necessarily, what we can do to make sure the money gets to where it's needed mostly?
Well, that we all work together and that the rules do not, supersede state regulations, and that we're all working together under the same thing to have it all work to the best of our ability.
Not supersede state regulations.
Right.
So there's a recognition there that some states actually do it right. And there's also a recognition in what you say, I would think, that a bureaucrat in Health and Human Services that's hundreds, maybe thousands of miles away doesn't necessarily care more for our kids than those adults that are closest to our kids.
That's correct. Including
your employees. Thank you. Ms. Coos, anything else?
I would just say that we would like to see CCDBG focus on safety, accountability for children. We want protections put in place for children so that all children, when they go to child care, are safe.
Seeing no more business before the committee, we remain adjourned. Thanks.